You know how you do it, man. It's a trip.
Car customization is a staple of Need for Speed. In the spirit of Need for Speed Unbound releasing in a little over a month, I'd like to highlight the evolution of car customization within the Need for Speed series. I just like to preface, it's not a coverage of every game, but more like an analysis of every era within Need for Speed. So what we're going to do, right? We're going to break down the series into 4 eras. We're not going to cover each and every one. We're just going to go over a few of the games that really represents what that era was all about. So, let's break down our 4 eras. We have the PS2 era, the beginning, the start of it all. The prime era, think 90s Bulls and they're on their run, 90 to 98 Bulls. Then, lack of a better term, the return to Monk era, where we see a drastic return to the beginning. It's so they return back to the beginning, basically. Return to Monk. I know, could have found a better term, but I think that fits it pretty well. And then finally, the modern era, the one we're in now. So, let's begin our analysis, right? This was a interesting time where a lot of cars just did not have the customization as one would expect. There was quite a lot of limitation in terms of paints and car parts. It was a time where it really fed off the energy of Gran Turismo games, where you had different models of cars. You had like the McLaren F1 and the McLaren F1 GTR LM, where it was a little different paint job, different wing, sort of like a BMW, M3 E46 like sedan, and then an E46 GTR version. You couldn't change the parts, you couldn't adjust individual spoiler, hood, roll cage, anything like that, but you had the different type of cars, different models, if you get what I'm saying. So that was the furthest customization went in the PS2 era. It really didn't even go that far until later games, until like Hot Pursuit 2. First games, the Need for Speed, the OG, and Need for Speed 2, we really didn't see anything drastic. It was just use these cool cars, fast cars like a Mustang, the Cobra R, or some of these other like Ferraris, some of the Ferraris at the time. Like that was the furthest we got. And even Porsche Unleashed, you just got all the Porsche brands. I think the furthest a win might have went up to is like the Carrera GT, but I think that might have debuted in Most Wanted. So I don't even think you got that. Like you only got stock cars in that PS2 era. And this era, it's not for everybody. Some people really, they love this era. They feel like this was where the game started and where it should have stayed. You have those people out there. Moving on to the prime era, and probably the era where you guys started your love for Need for Speed, and I say the same thing for myself, is the prime era. We have Underground 1, Underground 2, Most Wanted 05, Carbon, Prostreet, and yes, Undercover, even though it's like the black sheep and it's like the Mickey, but it's still within that time period. This is the good stuff where the ability to make your car your own was emphasized. Underground 1 changed that game. No one was doing like Underground 1 did. This was also the time where Fast and Furious came out. So not only did you have racing games emphasize this ability to make outlandish cars, you had it on the big screen. People that didn't know about this, that wanted to do this, they can go into a video game and do it. And those two, that symbiosis, relationship works so well during that time, and that catapulted it to Underground 2, and really that allowed them to take that next step. Or Underground 2, we've never seen customization like it. It really took it to the absolute next level, and that's really the peak. We've never reached Underground 2 levels of customization since then. I feel it's gotten better since Underground 2, but if we're talking about just the extent of parts available and things you can do, we've never been back there. In terms of Most Wanted, we see a slight restriction in your ability compared to Underground 2, but nothing was going to keep up with that game, so I don't blame them too much. We see we have body kits similar to the older Need for Speed games, but there was no like detailed vinyl editor or any putting speakers in your trunk, nothing like that. Instead, a lot of the assets were moved towards, police chases, and the story mode was more fleshed out than Underground 2. That's for a different conversation. We're talking about customization. So, but like I was saying, Most Wanted really, it toned it down. It toned it down way more, and it really took it down to the Underground 1 level, but even Underground 1 had added more customization than Underground 2, Underground and Most Wanted 05. Yeah, Most Wanted kind of took a step back in that department. Moving on to Carbon, we see it took the template, took the Most Wanted template and added auto sculpt. That is the ability to put on certain bumpers and just, you can alter it as much as you want. We've never seen auto sculpt backed again, and I think it's a great, you know, addition that really increases the freedom of customization. Being able to just physically just change a bumper to exactly how you want, like to the percentage difference, is something that's, you know, it's really cool. It just allows you to be more, you know, more unique with your car. And that was for Carbon Hat. That was its major addition in terms of customization, because everything else was about the same. It had a little better vinyl editor than Most Wanted, I'll definitely give it that. And then as well as auto sculpt, and you had the same parts from Most Wanted, so it just carried it over and added to it. That's all I can ask for, really, is for the next game just to take and add to it. Like, if that's the minimum in Carbon did that. Carbon did that well. Moving on to Prostreet, we really didn't have any major additions in terms of, you know, physical customization of the outside of your car, right? Most of it went into the performance, into the inside of your car. The ability to tune was reworked, remastered, and really that was one of the more focal points of Prostreet, was having that high level of build capacity while also allowing you to customize the inside parts of your vehicle, which wasn't touched in a game since then, besides maybe the early games where you could change a little bit, but not even then. Prostreet really embraced tuning and furthering that more than anything, so I consider that customization. Be able to change your timings on your, you know, engine, stuff like that, you know, transmission, gearing, like stuff like that. That's customization, even though it's not, you know, flashy. That's still performance tuning. That's still customization. So Prostreet definitely, it moved up a step from Carbon. So, you know, if we rank these prime era games in terms of customization, I say you go Underground 2, Underground 1, Underground 2, Underground 1, Prostreet, Carbon, Most Wanted. There you go. That's it ranked for prime era, in my opinion. You know, people might say other stuff, but I feel that's the best way to put it in terms of prime Need for Speed goes. And then Undercover, man. You know, I don't like to talk about it too much because it wasn't that great, but it just copied Prostreet. I think that's a good way to put it. It copied Prostreet. Didn't really add anything unique to it. It really doesn't bring much to the table. You know, it gets slighted in this era for a good reason, because it really just ported over Prostreet's system and didn't do anything else. So that's why I'm barely talking about Undercover. And now let's go to a Return to Monk era, which is you know, a unique title, I know. But this era offers the most games and highlights, you know, a return back to the simpler ways. You know, we see this in our first game, Shift, and then also in Shift 2, where the focus was on realism, and they got rid of a lot of the, you know, insane body kits and crazy looking, you know, wings. They took that out. They said, nope, I'm going back to the basics, back to the monk. You know, that's where the title comes from, where the most customization you had was changing the body kits of, you know, race cars. Like I was mentioning, if you had a BMW E92, you could have a BMW E92 GTR, and it came with all the goodies: the roll cage, body kit, spoiler, side exhaust, even. You know, you had all that, but you couldn't do nothing to it. It was just all kitted out ready, and you had no control over it. In this era, you know, I think this is probably like the Need for Speed's, like, you know, the worst. Definitely the valley of Need for Speed era, where, you know, it just didn't have that identity. It didn't know what it wanted to do. It switched up between customization, no customization. You know, it's like it didn't figure out what it wanted. And this is a time where there wasn't much to do, and the games were lackluster during this time. One exception though, and even then it's not even very much of an exception, is Need for Speed World. As you know, the servers have been down on the EA server side, at least. Servers such as Night Riders are still alive today, and if you feel like playing it, tutorial, boom, little, you know, plug. You know, that was a game where there was a bunch of unique cars, and to this day, they're adding cars every. I'm not sure actually how often, but there's new cars every now and then, and they have the ability to change parts, change the vinyls, much similar to like the Prostreet Underground 1 and 2 type customization. Not to the full-on extent, but it's there. It's definitely much better than any game within this Return to Monk era Need for Speed game. So if you want to play that, there you go. It's an option. Game is still running to this day. I know it's surprising, but it is. 10, 15? No, it's like 10-year-old game. That's crazy. I'm getting old. All right, now moving on. Modern era. This is where we're at. We're at this right now. You're living in it. We see a drastic change, right? When Need for Speed 2015 dropped, it was revolutionary. This was the rebrand. Even EA knew it. They said, we're just gonna call it Need for Speed. That's it. That's all you get. Because it was supposed to be a full-on reboot. And it had an extreme level of customization that we see today. That was the game that started it. And, we'll see that today. We'll see it with Unbound. It doesn't... I don't think it tops. It doesn't top the level of ability as, Underground 2 had. But it beats it in quality. There's a lot of parts in Underground 2 that are... Looking back at it now, it's like you didn't need them all. You really didn't need all of them. A lot of the stuff, like the headlights, were kind of dumb. Some of the side skirts were just not like they were just bad. Like a lot of the parts were bad, and that's where the rice came from, But I think the modern era level customization, you can make your car rice, but there's a lot of good parts that are just a nice looking car, and it still allows you to change anything you want. It's finding that balance, and I think they found that balance. And they just keep improving on it as the year go on. And I think Unbound should really... They're not going to change too much, of course, because they really found the secret formula. But if they're going to change anything, I think it's going to be for the better. And I can't see them going wrong with customization. We're living in the peak time, I think, of building, of buildability, if that's a word. People might say, Underground 2.
Underground 2, remaster Underground 2.
I think we don't need it. We don't need it because we're in a good era right now, and Unbound should be a top Need for Speed game. So far, they've always, gotten better, except for Payback. But people like Payback too, though. So, like, if you have people that like it, it can't be a terrible game, So yeah, I hope this video was informative, provided you with an idea of where we're at in the Need for Speed timeline, where you're at right now. I hope to see you in Need for Speed Unbound. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.